peregrine falcons, but this is a unique peregrine falcon. This is BC. BC is 21 years old this year, and he's our first semen donor. And he's responsible for more young peregrine falcons than probably any peregrine in the world. And he no longer gives semen, but he still courts, as he's doing now. And there's been quite a few people by here today, so he's not too enthusiastic. But BC has been a very important bird, and must be about 100 now, I would imagine, in people years. But each morning when you bring his food, naturally he acts like he kills it, you know, even though it's dead, and he plucks a few feathers, and then he gives it back to you, and you give it back to him, and then finally eats a little bit. And so you go through the food exchange, then he flies up to his nest ledge and tries to court you into coming up there to lay an egg. And BC. And then on the sides here we'll have pedestals coming out of the ground, and there will be sculptures on the pedestals and benches to sit, and then we'll have artwork on all the walls. And the artwork will change periodically.
But I'll try today because we're all friends here, and we're all gathered here with the same interest. And I'd like to, the Chinese say that one picture's worth 1,000 words, but if you look around you, I think this place speaks better than even a picture could. I'm hoping we get some pictures for Hawkshaw, but you're standing in, sort of a dream come true as far as I'm concerned. I wish I were more eloquent, but if I were Shakespeare himself, I couldn't be more eloquent than what you see around you, because this is your history, and it belongs to all of you people, and belongs to all of us in the falconry community, and it belongs, in fact, especially to the people in this room, because you were invited here because you've done something to help make this archives go. And I'm especially tickled at those of you who've never been here. One, because I'm glad that you have a chance to see it. And the other is because you've given us your support without ever having even seen it. We've got a beautiful home that you helped us provide, this wing that we built for the archives. We built it, you and I, and all of us here. We're really moving along, but I think the most important thing about the archives and the people here is the spirit that it represents, and an interest in saving the history of the sport on our continent. It hasn't been so long ago that when Stabler wrote an article on falconry, the history part had nothing to do with America. And yet he had a tremendous influence on this room, let's face it. Doc and Sally, and where's Pinky? Pinky, there you go. I'm sorry. One that saw this thing and thought, man, it made it work. But it's people like Pinky, and it's people like Bob Berry, who knocked himself out to build the wing in respect for a very, very grand man, his old mentor, Jim Rice. And I think we're here to honor Jim Rice, both Jim as an individual, and Jim and Ruth as a couple, and certainly Jimmy, his son here, he's honored us with coming all the way from Pennsylvania. And Jim, he was a real friend to me when he didn't know me from Adam, but he took me under his wing, trapped the first peregrine that I ever flew. When you get 3 falconers in a room, you got 4 opinions at least. I have, except to say thank you for this. I really ought to say something about fundraising, right?
Morley and I do quite a few things together, and Morley certainly has a perspective
that it takes to be a good falconer. And at one time, the Craig Hicks said, well, Morley, you're president of NAPA, and I didn't know what was going on. That was way back. But that was at the time when there was a fuss among the falconers. Falconry is the basis to the finest conservation movement in the world.
And now that I've seen what's happened, I am just overwhelmed with the job that Kent's done here, and I certainly am a supporter of the organization, and I hope it prospers.
Oh, it's just a dream.
Good idea.
Are you going to
Color phases, and they're absolutely exquisite. They were owned by Jack Maverick Gordato, and when he died, they were split up by his family. And
We are, we've got an ongoing project of collecting correspondence and diaries and personal things of this nature, you know, the unique stuff, not just the books which close to 10 or 12 hours with Al Nye on tape before he passed away.
A passage sacred that was really good, as some of them are. And boy, I mean, that went for miles, and they filmed that thing. And anybody who knows anything about falconry sees that and says, wait a minute now.
Not only one of the best falconers I ever met in my life, but probably the nicest overall man I ever met in my life. And I genuinely mean that. And I can't talk about him without getting a lump in my throat. And so I'm not going to say anymore, except for I can't think of a more fitting person to have the archives wing dedicated to.
Just relate a little short history and say something. To Bob, for Bob, since he's not here. When I was 7 years old and Bob was 12 years old, he came down to our place in King of Prussia with a little sparrowhawk that he'd caught. And what to do with it? How can we train it? And that's how it all started with Bob and my father. And it was a relationship that never ended.
A work of love, be it trying to restore the peregrine falcon throughout its historical range, and with the release of over 3,500 birds in 29 states from coast to coast, and literally the saving of, and really the beginning of the archives with the help of Bob and Sally Stabler and Pinky, because without Pinky and Bob and Sally, the Stabler Library began the archives. The Stabler money really began the archives and really got it underway. And without you, Pinky, and Bob and Sally, it's unlikely that it would happen. Yeah, some of it is your money, as a matter of fact. I remember the signature on the checks. I have a good memory for that. But with all of us working together, we have created something pretty special, and it's something that will provide benefits to not only this generation, but the you that are here, and we really appreciate it. With that, we'll end the speeches and get back to...
Just know that I knew them. I never met Bob Stabler, but I corresponded with him and spoke with him, and I thought you'd like to hear. They said the early 1930s saw the beginning of falconry in Pennsylvania. Philadelphia and its suburbs was a spawning ground, and during the late 30s, it was unquestionably the center of falconry in the United States. At least 3 of the pioneer falconers of the state are still flying peregrines, and if the good Lord had not seen fit to take Corny McFadden, he would still be found any winter afternoon on the hill at Wideness with bells tinkling overhead. The 4 men primarily influenced the growth of the sport here, and their contribution to New World falconry was great. They were Alvin Nye Jr., Robert Stabler, James Rice, and late Corny McFadden. Jim Rice heard Al Nye give a talk on birds of prey and falconry at the Delaware Valley Ornithological Club in Philadelphia in 1935.